You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron, live with Ethan Haristodoulou.
Welcome back, everyone, to more of the Greeks Gridiron. I am Ethan Haristodoulou, and today on this very hot Monday, July 19th, 2022, we are talking the top 5 running backs of the NFL going into the 2022 season. I feel like this is another one of those lists where very hotly debated. I definitely have a name or two left off this list that I know some people are going to be very upset about. So by all means, feel free to fire away in the comment section down below. Let me know who you agree and disagree with. I would love to hear your guys' top 5 running back lists as well. I've been gone for, I want to say the last 4 days now. Just been busy with work. Life, health issue came up. I'm fine, but just been dealing with some back stuff. I needed to go get checked out. I work out a lot, and I've been dealing with some crazy back pain for the last few months, and I finally decided I needed to do something about it. So if you are somebody who is dealing with any sort of physical pain, you should probably go see a doctor. I'm pretty stubborn. Don't be like me. Take care of yourselves. But without further ado, let's dive into it, shall we? Top 5, there will be a quick little honorable mentions list at the end of the video, so make sure you stick around for that to see who I definitely considered to be on the list here, but didn't quite make the cut because of how good these 5 guys are, in my opinion. Starting at number 5, I had to go with him here. I wanted to have him a little bit higher, but all 4 guys that I have above him either just have consistently been at the top for either a while now or just had such dominating performances last year, and I only expect them to either be as good or maybe even improve upon next year, is the Browns running back Nick Chubb. I want to say this. For a number 5 at the bottom of this list, I mean, you could argue this guy at number 4 or maybe even number 3. Nick Chubb plays the game differently. If you've seen the way he plays, he can be elusive, but he can also plow someone over for the extra yardage that he needs. He's one of those guys that is pretty much the complete package. Part of the reason why I have him at number 5 and not any higher is because everyone else on this list, one of them might be a somewhat of an argument to that, but he has put up some numbers receiving, maybe not quite as much as the other 3 guys, but his production in the passing game is minimal to the rest of the guys on the list. I don't want to say that he doesn't produce anything in the passing game, but it's minimal to everybody else. But altogether, 1,433 yards last season. He had 9 touchdowns. He was averaging 5.8 yards a touch. That's ties for the most on this list. So when he's getting the ball, he's ripping you. Odds are, for more than half of a first down every single time he gets the football in his hands. He's very effective. And like I said, one of the harder running backs, or harder, I guess what is the wording for that? One of the more aggressive running backs that will, again, not be afraid to run right through a defender. There is a handful of angry run highlight reels you can find of Nick Chubb, and I definitely think he is one of the best when it comes to plowing through defenders and fighting for that extra yardage. Now, coming in at number 4, this will be, I'm sure, a contested one amongst fans here because this is division rivals we're talking here. And no, I'm not talking Najee Harris, my Steelers fans. I am actually talking Joe Mixon from the Bengals, a guy who I think was slightly underrated in the totality of the Bengals offense last season. You're looking at the numbers here, 1,519 yards. He had 16 touchdowns. And tied for lowest on the list with one of the other running backs on this list here. He was averaging 4.6 yards per touch. I've got to say this. For a team that has Jamar Chase and, Tyler Boyd, and then, of course, T. Higgins, everyone's talking about that wide receiver trio. I don't think Joe Mixon gets quite enough love. His production is fairly split amongst his yardage where, I want to say he had about a couple hundred more yards on the ground than he did through the air, but overall, his production is fairly split. And for me, to help you guys understand when I'm making this list, when I think of top 5 running backs, I think of the total package, the most complete guys in the league who you can trust both on the ground and through the air. In this day and age as NFL, if you're a running back, you need to be able to catch the ball, catch the ball out of the backfield just as much and just as well as you can run the football on the ground and move the chains. And Joe Mixon defines that with his 16 touchdowns and his 1,500 yards that he had altogether. I love the elusive style of play he has. He is a burner as well, and someone that I really hope, because I believe he's going into a contract year this year, if I'm not mistaken, that the Bengals opt to keep around. This is a guy who I think can be an excellent piece behind Joe Burrow for at least the next 5 or so years of his career. I think he has a decent amount of tread on his tires left, just with how high of a level he's playing at currently at his stage in his career. He's got to stay in Cincinnati, and I'm sure Bengals fans, you guys would agree with me, but I had to make sure he got on this list here at number 4. Love me some Joe Mixon. I've been a big fan of this guy for a handful of years now, and I want to see him continue to thrive in that completely just dominant Bengals offense that now has a retooled offensive line. I mean, I can't even imagine how good the Bengals are going to look this year with an improved O-line that Joe Mixon will be behind and Joe Burrow is going to be behind. The sky's the limit for this offense, and Joe Mixon will be a big part of it. Coming in at number 3, and I know that this one's probably going to be controversial as well, but after dealing with an injury last year and only making it through 8 games, and you probably already know where I'm going with this, Derrick Henry from the Tennessee Titans, I have him ranked as the number 3 guy. Yes, I understand he was the rushing king a couple of years ago, and Titans fans, I'm a Colts fan, so, go ahead and fire away and yell at me in the comment section down below all you want if you feel you need to. I understand, but I will not sit here and act like he was not averaging 117 yards a game last year. So part of the reason why is because he looked a little bit rusty coming back in that playoff game. And don't get me wrong, that is a 1-game sample size coming off of an injury. He's had all offseason now to prepare himself. I understand that. I just need to see him return to form. His yards per touch was fairly low last year compared to his norm at only 4.6. Again, he is tied for the lowest on this list here with Joe Mixon. He had 1,091 yards and 10 touchdowns in the 8 games he played. So, I mean, realistically speaking, he outpaces Jonathan Taylor, who had the highest number of yards altogether for any running back in the league. And with 10 touchdowns through 8 games, arguably could have had 20 as well. So, listen, I'm not going to sit here and act like Derrick Henry is falling off or anything like that. I just want to see him bounce back from his injury and get back and return to form. But there was some slight signs of where prior to the injury I was a little bit concerned about. So we'll have to see. You're looking at an offensive line that I don't really want to say got better this offseason, and you're also losing the threat of A.J. Brown. The weight of the load, which has already been fairly heavy on Derrick Henry's massive shoulders, and he's carried it well, has gotten a little bit heavier, and I think teams are going to, and while they already struggled enough as it was trying to devote as many guys as possible to stopping Derrick Henry, now that you're going from A.J. Brown to a rookie wide receiver, defenses might not respect the receiving core as much and get even more aggressive trying to stack the box, knowing Derrick Henry is probably going to be fed that, 25, 30 touches a game that it felt like he was getting prior to his injury for the last year and a half to 2 years. I just need to see a bounce back. That's all it really is. Do I think Derrick Henry has a strong argument for being the best running back in the league? Of course I do. He has been my favorite running back before Jonathan Taylor came in the league, essentially. I have loved Derrick Henry and the way he has steamrolled defenses, and I think he can get right back to it. I just have to see it from him. Simple as that. Coming in at number 2, and there's already a pretty notable name missing from this list here, and he's still going to be missing, and I'm curious to see if you guys can figure out who it is as I finish off this list here. From the Chargers, running back Austin Ekeler. I cannot make a top 5 list without including one of who I think is the most underappreciated, undervalued, and underrated running back in the NFL. Maybe it's because he's on the Chargers. Maybe it's because he wears an ugly number 30 for running back standards, although I think Austin Ekeler rocks the number 30 as well as anybody would sporting the number. But this is someone that for some reason just gets completely overlooked around the league when I see people talking about best running backs, and I have no idea why. He has the second most total yardage from last year on the list here at 1,558. He tied Jonathan Taylor in touchdowns with 20 altogether, and he was averaging 5.6 yards a touch. Austin Ekeler, since he got his opportunity with the Chargers to be running back 1 there, has took that opportunity, jumped on a motorcycle, and just dipped. He has been so good for this Chargers offense, and he is, in my opinion, the heart and soul. While you have Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, those 2 awesome wide receivers, and everyone's talking about the defense and everything, Austin Ekeler and Justin Burrow as your quarterback, but Austin Ekeler just gets lost in all the conversation, and it's downright disrespectful. Austin Ekeler is a phenomenal running back, and I cannot sit here and make a top 5 list and disregard the guy who had the second most total yards for running backs and tied for the most touchdowns scored and had some of the highest yards per touch average through the entire league. He is a game breaker, and how I see top 5 lists without him is blasphemy. It makes literally no sense. Since he has had this opportunity to be running back 1, he has shown he is like a fantasy monster, and he's effective as well. It's not like, oh, he's just having good fantasy games. Like, no, he is a difference maker, and a big reason why the Chargers have been able to stay competitive. There have been games where the Chargers are being outscored 42 to like 35, and in large part only because Austin Ekeler has like 3, 4, 5 touchdowns and like 250 yards altogether from scrimmage. The guy is a beast, and he deserves recognition, and I wanted to make sure that I gave it to him here today. He is my number 2 running back. When you talk about all-around guys who can do everything, who can run the football, he can catch the football, he can work in pass protection as well if you need him to, Austin Ekeler is one of the most complete running backs in this league. And then coming in at the number 1 spot, and a little bit of a homer moment for me here, but I cannot deny him. And, fanhood aside, when you look at the numbers and the progression of his career so far and just the kind of ugly and disastrous passing game that was going on in Indianapolis, Jonathan Taylor is the definitive number 1 all-around back in the league. He has the size, the top-end speed. He can run through you. He can make you miss. He can catch the football out of the backfield. He had 2,171 yards altogether. The 20 total touchdowns. He was averaging 5.8 yards per touch. Jonathan Taylor, if you were to build out a running back, is the ideal type of running back. Big dude, solid size, awesome speed. He had I think he had the fastest speed recorded last year in a singular play, according to Next Gen Stats, if I'm remembering correctly. There might have been someone else, but I believe it was Jonathan Taylor. And again, I'm a Colts fan, but this is like fanhood aside. If I could have molded a running back for my favorite team, it was Jonathan Taylor. It is Jonathan Taylor. And he's going behind an offensive line in Indianapolis that's been so good as well the last few years. He is going to be torching the league for quite some time, barring injuries and anything like that. He's got Matt Ryan now as the quarterback. Defenses have to really respect the passing game now, because I think while Matt Ryan might not be MVP from a few years ago, Matt Ryan, he is still good decision-making, can put up 4,000 and some odd yards and probably hit you for 30 touchdowns or so next year. And now you have to respect the passing game and open things up for Jonathan Taylor, who, towards the end of the year, I don't think anyone really feared Carson Wentz in the Colts passing game. It was more so, all right, we got to defend Jonathan Taylor, and he was still ripping teams for 50-yard runs. It felt like every other week some massive play coming from him. I'm gushing over him, and I'm trying not to because, again, I am a Colts fan. But if I was to mold a running back and kind of build him out, Jonathan Taylor is that guy. The numbers speak for themselves. His progression from year 1 to year 2, it's not a fluke. He is going to continue to be a problem in this league, and I think right now, as it stands, labeling him number 1 makes a lot of sense to me. Derrick Henry and Austin Ekeler are the 2 guys that I think could legitimately challenge him for that number 1 spot. And honestly, Austin Ekeler last year coming into the season was probably arguably one of the best, and he doubled down and he proved why he is one of the best. This top 3 here, and even Joe Mixon. I mean, Joe Mixon is an awesome running back as well, and Nick Chubb. All of these guys have legitimate conversations for why they could be the best running back in the league. But my goodness, did Jonathan Taylor run away with the numbers this past season, and I think it's only potentially going to get better now that the Colts have someone like Matt Ryan that defenses really need to respect. But that is my list for top 5 running backs going into the 2022 season. Honorable mentions. As I said, we would talk about Dalvin Cook was a guy that I heavily considered on here. A few injuries and just lackluster production, I want to say, for a top 5 list, not in terms of in totality for running backs for the entire league, but just in general. I've got to say Dalvin Cook was definitely a guy I considered here for like the number 5 spot. And then, of course, I cannot leave out rookie running back Najee Harris. I think some people don't want to credit him as much just because he's on the Steelers and because the Steelers offense ran a lot through him. But at that point, as a rookie, averaging 5 yards a touch, he had 1,667 total yards. He had double-digit touchdowns his first year in the league. I mean, if Kenny Pickett can turn out to be a serviceable quarterback, I have no reason to believe that Najee Harris can't double down and have similar production this year. Hopefully the Steelers' offensive line is better than what they had last year, so things open up more for Najee Harris. And I mean, just another Alabama running back doing his thing. They seem to do very well in the NFL, minus a couple of guys here and there. But the last, it feels 7-8 running backs coming out of Alabama are all dominant dudes. Najee Harris seems to be following suit in there. And then my last guy, who I would probably rank at number 8 right now because injuries have just kept him off the field. When he's healthy, Christian McCaffrey is arguably one of the best playmakers in the NFL. However, he just cannot stay on the field. And if he can stay on the field this year, he's probably going to be in contention for like the top 3 spot. But I cannot, in good conscience, disrespect the guys who have been on the field the last couple of years, putting their hearts out, playing their hearts out, and giving all the blood, sweat, and tears possible. I'm not going to say Christian McCaffrey isn't himself because I know he's working, rehabbing, constantly trying to get himself back, and I know it's killing him. He's not on the field. But I can't disrespect the guys that have been on the field and not have them in the spots that they are and throw Christian McCaffrey in there because of production he had 3 years ago, the last time he had a fully healthy season. But that is my top 5. I would love to hear what you guys think. I appreciate you all for watching. As always, I will see you guys in the next video. Enjoy your Monday. Football starts in about 2 weeks. We are getting so close. Bills and Raiders reported a training camp yesterday. A bunch of teams are reporting today, and the rest of the teams will be kind of following suit as we roll through the week. Preseason football is almost here. The NFL is almost here. It is Christmas in July as we watch all these teams go into training camp, and the hype for the 2022 season begins to build. I am excited, and I hope you are. I will catch you guys next time. Have a good one.